Good morning, everybody. Walt did a really good job covering the highlights of the early stage portfolio, so I'm going to dive into just a little bit more detail, but you'll also hear in a panel later this morning, I believe from Hari Van Hala, who's over there in the corner. Maggie Yancey, are you here yet? Maggie Yancey, and then Damian Taylor back here, SBIR program. Those folks kind of collectively represent expertise from across the early stage portfolio that will be on a panel later, so you can get into much more detail with them throughout the day. So the early stage portfolio, that right-hand side of the kind of pipeline chart that Walt kicked us off with, is really the entry point for or not only early stage, but new participants in the STMD set of programs. And so we really take it seriously that we are cultivating a set of innovators, a diverse set of innovators from across a whole ecosystem for space technology. So that's across academia, small businesses, large businesses, within our own NASA centers, and also garage inventors that might not be affiliated with any particular organization, just individuals that are inventors that may have a mechanism to work with the government directly through things like prizes, challenges, and crowdsourcing. So we see ourselves as really being that kind of welcoming front end to engaging with STMD at early stages. And there's many different pathways for these stakeholder groups to be able to nurture their technologies to transition. I'll talk through a few of those examples today. And I'm going to spotlight, most of my time today is going to be focused on 3 of the programs that Walt mentioned, Space Tech Research Grants. How many folks in the room are from academia? Great, lots of y'all. SBIR, STTR, so small businesses in the room. Great. There's also, with STTR, an opportunity for partnerships between universities and small businesses. And I highly encourage folks to think through those opportunities, because as Walt talked earlier about the win rate with just across the mission directorate overall, STTR actually has the highest percentage win rate out of all of the solicitations that we have. So if you're able to kind of get over that initial barrier of getting a good university small business partnership, STTR is a really good place to invest your time if there's a relevant topic. All right. And we have funded, I'll just spend a moment on NIAC on this slide, in addition to what Walt also said. We have funded a number of really innovative lunar concepts through NIAC. So NIAC really is, if you've got that kind of out there idea that, you know, physics says it's possible, but it really hasn't been worked out yet, whether or not the concept could actually work tied to a particular mission concept, that's the place to come in with your really big ideas. And they have actually a pipeline of phase 1 awards to phase 2 awards to phase 3. There's a phase 3 opportunity with NIAC that can be up to a $2 million investment to help invest in those ideas that are, to get those ideas really better teed up for transition opportunities. So you're going to hear more about Luster later today. I'm sure Hari will talk about it, but also tomorrow there is continuation reviews for all of for the Luster projects. So how many folks actually in the room today are going to be presenting tomorrow on their Luster projects? Great, well, excited to get the updates for that. Last time that I participated in that a year ago, there was some really exciting stuff, progress made there. We invest across the focus areas related to LSIC through Luster. This is again a university-focused opportunity that we do encourage industry partnerships through these Luster awards. They're the second largest awards we make in the STRG portfolio. They're $2 million awards over 2 years. The biggest awards that we make for universities, as Walt alluded to earlier, are things called STRIs, Space Tech Research Institutes, and those are actually $15 million institutes where we encourage cross-university participation, research institution participation in large institutes focused on topics of great interest to STMD. So we just announced 2 STRIs this year. We do those in an every other year cycle. The STRIs, we just announced 2, one for quantum sensing and the other for certification of additively manufactured stuff. And those 2 will initiate next fiscal year, but really excited about those 2 to get started. And we've had 6 prior research institutes. So these are our 7th and 8th Yeah, 7th and 8th research institutes. Ahead of you here, you can see an example of the types of topics that we'll release through the annual Luster solicitation. So Luster is typically on an annual cycle, and we'll release a couple or a few topics specifically related to the interests of this community. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to focus on this opportunity today. You can see the topics range from ISRU to surface power to dust to extreme environments. We just recently had a Luster. Did Luster just recently close? Ari, will you remind me? Just recently closed. So be looking forward to seeing what comes in through that cycle this year. The other things within the Space Tech Research Grants Program, I only just talked about institutes and these Lusters, which again, we really encourage industry partnerships with. The other items that we have are kind of more traditional academic investments, early stage innovations that focuses on kind of breakthrough concepts from academic PIs, early career faculty that focuses, like it says, early career faculty investments, and also NST Grow, which is our fellowships opportunity for undergrads going into graduate fellowship opportunities, or graduates that are already in graduate school seeking graduate fellowship opportunities. Pretty much everything we do in STRG is topic dependent, so we will release topics, so pay attention to the topics that come out annually, except for NST Grow. The fellowships opportunity is one that, as long as it relates to a NASA technology taxonomy area and it relates to an interest of NASA, the student kind of has a compelling alignment and interest in space technology, we'll consider it. So that's kind of more of an open solicitation for fellowships for students. All right, for SBIR, this is our small business set of programs. Walt mentioned it's about $250 million a year. It's a lot of money annually that we spend through this out of STMD. One of the things that I just want to highlight in SBIR is you can also think about SBIR itself as a pipeline for projects. We take in projects at phase 1 that are about $150K. We fund 300 to 400 projects a year between SBIR and STTR at phase 1. At phase 2, that dollar value increases to $850,000, and we fund 35 to 40% of the phase 1s. There's an exception to that, which is a new pilot called Ignite that I'll touch on for just a second. And then really the goal of participating, getting into the pipeline of the SBIR program is our post-phase 2 activities. So the post-phase 2 activities get you access to much higher dollar values, like the sequentials that you see on the screen in front of you. This is up to a $5 million award where we, again, release topics annually. It's only open to people who have won prior phase 2s. That's why it's important. And the nuance of that is the law. That's something that we're legally constrained to. We have to make sequentials only open to folks that have won a prior phase 2, but there's a lot of folks in the pipeline that have won prior phase 2s. And what we're able to do with these is kind of double down on the phase 2 progress for up to $5 million in additional funding, but there's an explicit tie to a customer that has a demand for this technology. And we work really hard on the topic development to make sure that that's lined up. So here you see 2 examples of the benefits of that. For this Proto Innovations example, that's the first one, that is going to be part of Viper that's scheduled to launch in late 2023. It was one of our first sets of sequential awards, and within a short 3-year period, it's gonna fly, which is pretty cool. Second example here for Qualtech, this was also one of the ones in our first set of sequential awards, and it is going to be part of the Gateway program. These also, importantly, in addition to the sequential, that say SBIR dollars, the customer came forward with phase 3 dollars, their own money, to continue the integration and the purchase of these technologies. So the last thing I'll say about SBIR that sometimes is a little known fact for people is if you've won one phase 1 award, like 150K phase 1 award, you basically have a license to hunt, a sole source justification for any customer to give you money directly without competition through a phase 3. Just with a phase 1, a single 150K phase 1. Most folks don't realize that that's a capability that you get by winning a phase 1. It's something Congress has authorized through the SBIR program to give small businesses an advantage. That once you get credentialed through a phase 1, someone can go direct to you, unlimited money, unlimited amount of time. Someone could award you a $2 billion contract uncompeted. if it's extended from the phase one. So something to keep in mind when you're thinking about your commercialization strategy for these technologies and partnering with the government. Actually, Capstone is a great example of that maybe Chris will talk about later. All right, how am I on time? Just go quickly through the rest. So prizes and challenges, Walt also mentioned these are an opportunity. It doesn't matter who you work for. It doesn't matter if you work for a university, small business, large business, yourself. You could be a mother-daughter team and decide that you want to participate in one of these prize competitions. And the government can actually pay you directly through an EFT transfer. You don't have to actually work for an institution to participate in a prize competition. So these are incredibly powerful to be able to reach anybody, anywhere. And some of our competitions also allow for international participation. Watts on the Moon, Break the Ice, you have to be a US entity or a US person to win money associated with that, but we often have international competitors that are participating for the prestige, even if they're not able to win the prize purse. So these are just some of the examples of prize competitions that have been recently out or are currently underway that relate to LSIC objectives and topics. Finally, I wanted to mention the Entrepreneurs Challenge, which is actually not an STMD challenge. It is a Science Mission Directorate challenge. Maggie might talk a little bit about it later. But this is an effort of our colleagues in the Science Mission Directorate to try to directly engage entrepreneurs in a low barrier to entry way to get initial funding in order to gain entry to working with SMEs within the Science Mission Directorate of topics of interest to them. And there is a lunar focus this year in addition to a climate focus. So wanted to make sure you guys were aware of this because I believe it's open right now. The final thing that I'll just direct you to, this is going to be in the charts that are online. I'm not going to walk you through this crazy decoder ring, but that's exactly what this is. This is a decoder ring, these 3 slides that are right here. They'll be in these are going to be resources for you, but I think about this as like your decoder ring for what solicitations you should pay attention to in the early stage portfolio, depending on who you work for. Like, are you in academia? Are you small business? Are you large business? Is it topic dependent or is it open? So is your ability to propose dependent on whether or not a topic happens to be included that year that is related to you, or is it a more open solicitation? It gives you a sense of kind of the funding, how often we make these funding opportunities available, and gives you a sense of like the full pipeline of opportunities in a particular program. So I mentioned phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 in NIAC earlier. SBIR has a whole pipeline from phase 1s to phase 2s to post-phase 2s to phase 3s. The last thing that I'll mention on SBIR before I close is we did pilot a new on-ramp to the SBIR program last year, learning from some of the work of folks like AFWorks and SpaceWorks and some of the other folks across the government who have been experimenting with more rapid SBIR processes. That we launched our first pilot of that last year, and it actually was just as competitive as NIAC. We got over 300 proposals to that, and I think we made max, 12 awards? 12 awards. And the differentiation between the Ignite solicitation that will be coming out this summer again as well, and the regular SBIR solicitation is that in Ignite, we're really looking for dual use commercial, we're looking for dual use technologies that NASA is one of many customers, but not the only customer. So we're really open to commercialization, kind of strong business cases with this Ignite solicitation, and that's actually what we look for. We actually consider the business plan much higher in the score, for example, than we do in the regular phase 1 process. So for those folks that are working on things that are kind of more commercial space related, that is it's a streamlined application process, but one of the things that's also unique with Ignite is the goal is to get if people meet their milestones in phase 1 for Ignite, the goal is 100% transition rate to phase 2. So it's we're acting more like a angel or venture investor, where if you meet a milestone, you get your next tranche of funding, as opposed to full competition between phase 1 and phase 2. It's structured a little bit differently, again, in order to be structured more like an investor would invest in these companies as long as they meet their milestones. So I will leave the rest of this decoder ring for you guys to process, and we'll be here throughout the day, myself and a bunch of other members of the team, to take any questions that you all have. But I hope you consider putting in proposals to the program, but also doing the homework prior to the proposal process, which is a large part of being here today, to help get yourself best prepared to be successful. So thank you so much, and thanks for your interest in STMD and LSIC.